Awesome. It's 12 p.m. So we're going to go ahead and get started. But before we do, I'd like to ask everyone to drop what business you're in into the chat. You don't have to if you don't want to. You could stay anonymous, but this would really help us tailor the presentation to your business so we could, sprinkle in some examples for your specific business. And obviously, you never know where you could find your next business partner, next customer, next client. So, dropping something into the chat might spark an idea for someone else, and you might connect in the chat. We've seen it happen in previous webinars. So again, you'll never know where you can meet your next business partner. We encourage everyone to drop their what you do for business into the chat. That'd be awesome. So welcome to another NJ Thrives Thursdays. As you know, we do this every Thursday at 12 p.m. It's a weekly webinar series for New Jersey small business owners. I'm your host, Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC marketing consultant and CEO at nilumamedia.com. So what's the NJSBDC? We're basically a statewide program powered by the SBA and state partners to help small businesses with no-cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources only available to SBDC clients. So that said, our agenda is going to be, we're going to go over some small business headlines. We're going to jump into the webinar after that, and then Q&As at the end. So some small business headlines of the week. We have 3 today. So let's jump right in. The first one is the NJEDA board has approved, this was yesterday, they approved a $10.5 million grant program for small businesses to support recovery from the tropical storm Henry and Ida. I hope I'm saying that right. It's Ida. But there you have it. So NJEDA has responded to the tropical storm for businesses. So you'll be able to apply soon. I'll let you guys read it here, and we're going to drop the link to this article into the chat so you don't have to worry about losing it. But that's number 1. That's good news. The SBA is also offering disaster assistance to businesses and residents of New York. So we're just right across the Hudson River. So I know a couple of you might be from the city. So I wanted to show this article here that there's help for you guys too, directly from the SBA. So there you have it. I don't believe they have the details just yet, but this will go through. Oh, there you go. It says disaster loans up to 200,000. There you have it. You can apply using this link down here. So again, we're going to drop the link to this article into the chat so you can visit it after this webinar. And then our last headline, it's more of a resource. So New Jersey, business.nj.gov put up a great resource page for businesses impacted by the storm. And here you can get a lot of information, including information about the grant program, SBA loans that are available, application support. As you can see, they put Capitol. We'll have to contact them. But the New Jersey actually posted one of our teams, the Capital team, for assistance to help you guys fill out applications when it comes to grants and loans. So if you don't know how to get to that, it's njsbdc.com/capital team. So the Capital team is there to help you in acquiring loans and grants. We won't write the application for you. We won't we guide you, and that's the best help I think most businesses could get. So there you have it. That's the last headline I have for you today. But before we get started with the webinar, 3 things to keep in mind. For any questions, please plug them into, you're going to have a toolbar at the bottom. There's a button that says Q&A. You could ask questions anonymously or as yourself in there, but please put them in the Q&A box. If you put them in the chat, they'll probably get lost. So the first thing that we do is check the Q&A section. So drop your questions throughout the webinar. We'll answer them towards the end. Number 2 is after this webinar, you're going to automatically get redirected to a 3-minute survey. Once you complete the survey, you're going to get access to the webinar recording and materials. And 3, by attending this event, you're eligible for the Upgrade Your Business certificate. So you have to attend, I believe it's a certain amount. The information is going to be at the link there. We're going to drop all this into the chat. But now, without further ado, today's event is with Rafael Mata, NJSPDC Senior Consultant. And this is all about how to get your small business procurement ready. So, Rafael, how you doing?
Thank you, Christian. How are you? Can everyone hear me?
Good, good. I can hear you.
If Christian can hear me, then everyone else can hear me. It is my absolute pleasure to be here as an SBDC Senior Consultant as part of the network. A lot of the work that we do at the SBDC has to do with helping you grow your business, helping you stay compliant with government, helping you pursue new work or expand your business, even helping you register your business and guide you in your business plans and things of that sort. As Christian has already mentioned, we have been doing a lot of work with disaster assistance since the very beginning of the disaster. I'm one of the many consultants, one on the capital team that helps people access things like the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, other Union County Economic Development Corporation, PPP, just about all the different resources that you could think about. So Christian has already given you an update of just what some of the additional resources that are coming online can be available to businesses. Today, I'm going to talk about something that was relevant prior to the pandemic and is even more important now that we are in a pandemic, which is becoming procurement ready. And what I'm going to do with this presentation is I'm going to describe what procurement readiness is. Some of you may be familiar with the term procurement readiness. I don't know if folks can see my screen yet.
Yep.
See, sorry about that. So we're going to go through a few different things during this presentation, and I want to encourage everyone to put your questions in the chat as I'm speaking. Of course, if your question is urgent, just let Christian know or the team know, and I'm sure that we can try to address those questions before we move on. This is going to be a crash course on procurement and procurement readiness. And at a future time, we can talk about certifications and how to monetize certifications. And the reason those two topics are related is because procurement readiness and the documents needed for you to get your business certified as an underrepresented business are the same list. So in fact, whatever we're talking about here today, should you get these documents in order, you are actually also ready to get certified as a minority, women, veteran, or small business enterprise. And that provides you access to new pools of money, resources, a lot of different things. All right. So today, the first slide you see here is what we're going to be talking about. So we'll be defining procurement. We're going to talk about a few common procurement terms or terminology. We're going to discuss, obviously, what procurement readiness is for those who have not heard that term before. We're going to also discuss which documents you must have to be considered procurement ready. And we want to really just briefly touch on preparing and building a mindset for business growth and planning for your growth. So first and foremost, what is procurement, or what does procurement mean? And the very general definition is right here on the screen. It's the action of obtaining something. You know, in the case of government, which usually is the one that gets a lot of acclaim for procurement processes, and this webinar, you know, we're talking about the obtaining of goods of services from you. Okay, common terms that you would hear related to procurement. And for those who are not familiar with procurement, once you see these terms, it starts to gel a little bit for you. So procurement terms are quotes. That's you just providing usually a single page, basically describing a service or good and what that costs. There's bid opportunities, meaning there is a predetermined process by which you complete a form and you are bidding, or you're submitting your price for the service, and that's going to be compared with other companies using the same form and the same guidelines. There is request for proposal, and this is probably the one that most businesses hear about most commonly. The interesting part with request for proposals is that is usually the lowest success rate that businesses will see in completing requests for proposals, mostly because it's a lot of work to put these documents together, and providing a quote or a bid actually puts you in situations where you have less competition and there's less preparation and stuff that you have to submit for that opportunity. There's requests for qualifications, which sounds similar, but instead of proposing what your services are, you would be highlighting what your firm, company, or business's qualifications are. It's a scenario where a government entity or a private entity, a large corporation, is just looking to identify qualified businesses, and the price or the scope of the work is less important than the qualifications or the reputation of the firm. Request for information, also very similar to request for qualifications. Again, they're asking a specific list of questions on the which will provide them the information they need to see if they're going to pursue either an RFP process, an RFQ process, or some sort of quote. And one that businesses never think of is a letter of interest. And there's two scenarios in procurement where a letter of interest apply. The first is, some of you might have already seen that a letter of interest is requested if you intend to bid on something, or you intend to get on a list of bidders or people who are going to submit proposals. The other side of that coin is businesses can submit letters of interest even if they're not solicited. Even if someone has not requested a letter of interest, maybe you want to do business with a county jail, maybe you want to do business with Prudential, maybe you want to do business with your Red Bull Stadium, and you believe your service is unique, or that you could provide your service. You can find out who that purchasing professional is, or the director of purchasing, and submit a letter of interest. So what is procurement readiness? It's the ability to access new markets and increase capacity by doing the following things. You want to organize and acquire your key business documents. And I know that this sounds like a very generic statement that many people have already heard, but what I can tell you in being part of the capital team and responding to businesses in crisis is, you would be surprised how many people are not actually in compliance or have a copy of all their relevant or key business documents. And we'll talk a little bit more about what some of those key business documents are, but you're talking about your articles of incorporation, your insurances, even your business plans, which, believe it or not, a majority of small businesses, especially single member LLCs, put off this sort of planning until a crisis hits. You want to assess and determine your capacity for new business. Many people would love to get their hands on a $500,000 contract, $1 million contract. I often say that if the business is not really generating $1 million a year, you're usually in a self-employment sort of state, meaning that If you're making less than $1 million, you really can't afford to hire good talent. You can't afford to pay rents and insurances. You really can't afford to operate as an enterprise, as a business. And there's nothing wrong with that. There really is nothing wrong with operating as a sole proprietorship or operating as a single member LLC, or basically owning your job. The hang up happens when individuals believe that they are and are operating as a business, but in fact, they're operating as a self-employed person. The mindset is totally different. Very simply put, a self-employed person is usually selling their time. So the amount of hours that you can work caps the amount of revenue that you can generate. Same goes for a product. If you're a one-man show, there's only so much time that you have to produce your product and sell it and do everything by yourself. So you're capped by your own efforts when you're in that situation. But you want to think about those two scenarios when you're talking about how much new business can I actually handle. People usually don't think about new business or how much new business they can handle until they've secured the business. So maybe you're an excellent salesperson, but you didn't think through all the logistics or the paperwork that would be required once you pick that up. So you want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and some looking into your new contract opportunities closely before you take it on. The last thing you want to do is hurt your reputation by taking on work larger than what you can actually produce and then failing, and you know that vendor or that business is not going to forget that. And then you want to see what these situations are going to look like for you, how you're going to handle that. So you want to determine your capacity is very, very important. And people that are going to give you contracts are going to be looking at what size contracts have you had in the past before I provide you this opportunity. Can you sustain and operate your business without payment for 45 days? Why did I select 45 days? It's a midpoint. In good circumstances, you get paid on a 30-day cycle. In really not so great circumstances, it could take 90 days, depending on what their process is. So in general, you want to make sure that you can last 45 days without the client paying you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you work without payment or you work without funding. That's a totally separate issue, which I'm sure that NJ Thrives will cover in future presentations, which is access to capital or figuring out what sort of loan product or financial product is going to function as a bridge loan or provide you with that working capital while you wait to get paid. And you want to use marketing tools to increase visibility. All right. It's very important to think about brand and visibility. It's a new day. It's great to be on television. But believe it or not, a lot of action is happening via social media channels. A lot more leads are transitioning into actual work from social media channels and effort. And it really is something that you really need to be looking into, putting resources aside for, and putting some real thought into what your marketing plan is going to be and where your customers are. It's not good enough anymore to just post pictures and flyers on social media or very brief videos that are really not directing folks and are not consistent. These sort of things are important. And then finally, this time of year is the perfect time to start to plan for next year. So you want to create strategies to scale up or scale down for new businesses. And I know that scale down sounds a little, contradictory because everyone wants to grow. But in talking about determining your capacity, you may choose to lessen the number of projects that you have and maybe increase the cost for those projects versus just increasing volume. So now's the time to start thinking about, what are my next steps for next year? What is next year going to look like? What is my target revenue? Things of that sort. All of that has to do with being procurement ready. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about the essential documents that you need. This was a general overview of the planning that's entailed, but documents that you're going to need are you should always have your IRS EIN letter. If you're a sole proprietor, and we've seen this a lot at the SBDC, if you have chosen to be a sole proprietor, which does leave your personal assets at risk should you be sued or something happens, you're not officially organized as a business. Sole proprietor means I am doing business as myself, usually under my social security number. So I will just, as a word of caution, I would say if you can organize formally, you want to do that to protect yourself. But maybe your business is a hot dog stand. Maybe it's not too big of a deal. Maybe you have a vending machine company. It's not a big thing for you. I would still encourage that you go on the IRS website and get yourself an EIN number, because in the day of identity theft, which we are in full swing of, you really don't want to be doing business under your social security number. And when you get contracts, they will be looking for a tax ID. So secure an EIN regardless. If you organize your business, it's already part of the process if you're working with a reputable agency. Your business registration certificate is a document that you will receive when you have properly registered with the state of New Jersey. Doesn't matter where you organize. If you happen to be a business that organized in Delaware, but you want to do business in New Jersey, every business, whether it's organized here or not, and wants to do business in the state of New Jersey, must be certified. Again, we see this a lot at the SBDC. People don't even know what their business registration certificates are or getting registered with the state is. And what that means is people basically file their taxes, they have their articles of organization, so they don't bother to get certified because they haven't pursued any work with the state. Maybe you're a martial arts studio. Maybe you're an acupuncturist. Maybe all your money comes directly from customers and you haven't gotten any letters or notifications as to, not being certified. The challenge now with the pandemic and COVID is that people are trying to access resources. You're trying to access state loans. And if you are not properly registered with the state, you're basically invisible to the state and we're unable to move forward. So a lot of hurdles that we deal with at the SBDC is getting together these essential documents, being the registration of your business. Your articles of incorporation, we've talked about that. If you are in fact a corporation, certificate of authority is another document that you should have or could have. Your operating agreement or management agreement, depending on who organized your business, this should be part of your packet. It's not something for you to panic about, but if you do not have an operating agreement, the easiest way that I could describe this document is these are the rules by which you conduct business and how you manage between partners or internally. No one ever pays attention to this document until partners disagree or some sort of disagreement happens with a client. You end up in court. If you don't have this document, the lawyers will have a field day with you. If you have put this document together and it's some sort of a boilerplate one and no one's actually thought about how to protect your company with this document, you're also at risk. So it's very important that you make sure that these documents are in order before you need them, not after. After the fact, at this point, they will not let you update it during a court proceeding. It'll stand the way that it is. You want any certifications that you have. And I mentioned that a little earlier. We won't talk too much about certifications today because we have limited time on the certification piece, but I will tell you this. The state of New Jersey is in the process of passing a set-aside program, which basically means that a certain percentage of all goods and services will be earmarked or made available to minority, women, veteran, disabled veteran, and small business enterprise. There are already 4 counties that have set aside ordinances in place. If you are a disabled veteran owned business, there is already a 3% set aside for the state of New Jersey. There's also a number of programs that will allow you to borrow money more cheaply. It will give you access to certain networks and educational opportunities. So if you fall into any of these categories, and I'm going to say that 99% of you fall into at least one of them, you want to try to get this certification, especially since it's now free with the state of New Jersey. They've eliminated the $100 fee, and it can be done electronically. So if you're interested, again, you want to go to the SBDC website or reach out to your SBDC center to ask about those things, because we are assisting some businesses and groups. You want to make sure you have your business insurance. You should have workers' compensation. You should have liability insurance, at least a minimum one. If you don't know how much insurance to secure, look at your customers, ask them what sort of insurances they require in order for you to do business with them. What are their minimum insurances? Let that be the guide, and let that be a starting place. I'm sure Christian will agree with me on this one. This one is always coming up in basically half of our conversations. Filing your business tax returns. First of all, it's important to file tax returns, personal tax returns, business tax returns, etc. Okay. But if you are intending to scale your business up, you should be having conversations with your accountant about what your tax strategies are, what you want to present to the federal government and eventually banks with your tax returns. So what do I mean by that? If you have an accountant that says, well, doing all these things is going to save you on taxes, but you're going to represent on your taxes that you're losing money for the last 3 years. And then you walk into a bank and you say, but I need this line of credit for this possible contract that I'm going to get. So now you've submitted 3 years of tax returns showing that you have a failing business profit-wise. And then you say, I would like a loan. And then you take it personal if they decline the loan. So keep in mind that what banks are looking for are that you have the ability to pay this money back. And truth be told is, if your business is expanding or you have a solid plan, this is not a big deal to be able to pay them back. You are in fact just borrowing the money so that you can be able to do your service or provide your goods, be able to pay that loan back with no issue. You want to be in that sort of situation. We often recommend to people that they do not try to bootstrap businesses for very long. I'm here to tell you, especially being Hispanic, and I say I'm Hispanic because it's very prevalent in the Caribbean. The little cigar box with money that your wife's father is going to give you to start the business is a myth. That probably hasn't happened for I don't know how many generations. There was no conversation that says, take care of my daughter, here's the money to start the business. It's not a thing here. Access to capital, working with banks, understanding your credit, all these things are very important. You can choose to ignore it, but it will just delay or inhibit your ability to grow at the pace that your competitors are growing. And then finally is NATES codes. And I would encourage everyone to Google that. I have to admit that I don't ever remember exactly what it stands for. I know it's North American something codes, but essentially they are federal industry codes that are very specific to your industry and your service. It's important to know what these codes are, because as you start to become procurement ready and have these documents, you're going to be asked to go on certain portals, people you want to do business with, and they're going to ask you for those NATES codes, because that is how they identify or connect your business with certain categories of spending. So keep in mind and see it from their perspective. For your business, maybe selling paper is the most important thing because it's your business. But for that business, it may be one of 300 things that they purchase. And these coding systems allow them to track what the spending is on different things and even be able to answer questions that you might have, like how much did you spend on paper last year? So we speak a lot about preparation and we speak a lot about social media. And social media is definitely a key in trying to pivot your business. But one that people usually don't know too much about is your capability statement. So if you are working with an SBDC consultant, I would definitely ask them for some advice or some guidance on creating a capability statement. But the easiest way that we could describe that document is, imagine a resume for your business. Imagine a 1 to 2 page document that describes your vision, your mission, your services. It has all your NAICS codes neatly there. It lists all the certifications that your business has, and it allows a purchasing professional or a director of a department to quickly just look at your company and say, yeah, they provide what we need, so we can reach out to them. You will be asked for these documents as you start to go into the world of procurement, meaning that you're connecting with processes that are already in place for the purpose of purchasing your goods, versus what some businesses have been doing up to this point, which is, a phone call or a handshake is creating the business for them. So if you're looking to level up and start to get these larger contracts, a capability statement is important, because it'll be part of your package when you're talking to these procurement professionals. They'll ask you for these things. And if you don't have them, it doesn't look well for your business. Another thing that does not look well for a business is not having a website or not having a domain. Now, there's a lot of schools of thought on this. We realize that even websites, unless they are very dynamic or serve some sort of a purpose, that even those are starting to get a little antiquated. But websites still offer credibility. It still offers a very easy way for somebody to just learn about your business in a relaxed way and not be sold to. And most importantly, it ties to your email, which you should own a domain for. So you shouldn't have emails like constructionjohn24@gmail. You should have the john@whatever your company is.com. And just think of what that looks like for someone that's doing business with you. If you don't believe in investing in your own business to purchase a domain, which is very, very inexpensive right now. I know that our business runs on the Google platform completely, and we're talking about maybe 15, 20 bucks a month for just about everything. But if you don't believe in investing in your domain and your website, then why as a customer should I give you my money? You don't even want to invest in yourself. So why would I invest in you? That's the sort of, that's how customers feel when they see somebody using their personal email to do business. So if you haven't done that, look into some tools to try to get yourself a little more of that professional polish. We already talked about social media, but what we didn't talk about is, and there are people at the SBDC that are much better than this at me. Christian, for example, is someone that knows a little more about these sort of things. But you want to try to create a conversation around your service and your product. So I talked yesterday a little bit earlier about just posting pictures or posting things about your business. You want to post things that are going to create interest, but also things that are going to force some sort of engagement. Having worked in government before, I could tell you, if you want to know what not to do, just follow every single government Facebook page, social media page, or whatever. Whatever they do, you do the opposite of that. They post static images, they almost biblical level books of text and stuff like that. So you want less text, you have maybe about 15-20 seconds of somebody's attention to really strike a chord with them and have them take some interest. Some of you may also already know about search engine optimization. These things are important to procurement professionals. The same way that if you want to purchase, let's say, a falafel, that's what you wanted to eat. You go to Google and you punch that in, and maybe the first 6 to 8 listed businesses are going to get your business or your interest. Think about the people that are consuming your product. And again, think about investing in search engine optimization consultants or tools that know how to better position your business so that you come out in more search results when people are looking for your types of products. You'd be surprised the type of words that people might describe for your type of service. It may not be at all what you think it should be. And finally, third-party platforms or applications, or what I mean are things that automate these things other than capability statement, but things that automate your website and your social media.
So I have a quick question, Rafael, for the previous slide where these are items that not only will help you be more visible to the procurement professional, right? So let's say you're submitting a proposal, the procurement guy is gonna probably search up your business on Google. And if you can't find anything on social media, if your search engine optimization isn't right for your website, you're not coming up, you're invisible online.
Exactly.
You fall, and you're competing against other people submitting proposals. If the next person does have their website on top, on the first search result on Google, if they have a Facebook, if they have an Instagram, if they're on multiple platforms, they have a LinkedIn, right? Yeah. There's so many people that don't have a LinkedIn. You know, if your competitors are doing it and you're not, you're gonna lose, right? So this is probably like a competitive advantage to have all these things. Would you say that's right, Rafael?
It is a competitive advantage. I'm glad that you brought up LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is mandatory as far as I'm concerned. And the reason why is, first, people will see your business, but we live in a world where people want human contact and connection, and they're going to want to know who runs the business. They're going to want to know what your story is, and they're going to look for that by any means necessary. LinkedIn provides an amazing platform. Of course, there's a paid version, but just a free version is huge. Yep. You're going to get seen by a lot of professionals. It is a very professional format. You don't get a lot of jokey videos or any of that stuff. You're able to post videos about your project. People are able to endorse you. So Christian, yeah, you're absolutely right. LinkedIn is an amazing tool. I know we usually think Facebook. Right. I know that I'm dating myself now. I've spoken to some professionals that don't even use Facebook anymore. Instagram is like the most recent one. But you have to stay up on that sort of stuff. If you're not visible, basically you're not going to get any traction, even if you have a storefront or you have a location. I know in real estate, they say, you know, what are the 3 things that are most important? Location, location, location. I want you to think of your web presence as a location or an extension of your location. People are not going to come to your store if you don't have any sort of web presence. It's just not going to happen. They're going to look that up first, and they have way too many devices and platforms to look you up prior to even showing up.
Yeah. Last little tidbit before we go to the next slide. I just have to say this. If you do have a Facebook or Instagram and you post very personal pictures that are not too professional, please keep your profile private if that's the case. If not, you could always polish it up. I only keep, you know, family kind of stuff, vacation kind of stuff on my profiles. Keep it sort of mellow, no partying kind of stuff. No, you know, you want to keep yourself professional on all platforms. If not, keep it private.
You're right, Christian, because keep in mind that the settings on these things where it says public, that's exactly what it is public. And you've already heard, I'm sure, a lot of the nightmares in the working world about employers looking at stuff like that. So if you're not sure, keep it vanilla. Yep. If you are sure, just go in there like Christian said, and just make what's supposed to be private. Yeah. You want to prepare for your growth. And I'll quickly go through these last few slides. I know I've been doing a lot of talking, an enormous amount of information. Want to leave some time for questions, obviously. But this slide is necessary because what we found at the SBDC, and I found pretty much my entire career, is people don't actually prepare for growth. They just kind of hope for it or wish for it. Okay. That's never going to give you any sort of result on growth. I usually work with my clients talking about preparing a one-page business plan. And what I mean by that, to make it very concrete, is I'll ask them questions like, how much revenue are they looking to make in 2022? How many months in the year are they going to be working? And I try to ask them to be realistic. So perfect example, everyone's scrambling at the end of the year now because November is Thanksgiving, and that month is usually shot unless, you know, you get work in that field. The month of December is usually shot as well. Every business owner is entitled to sick days and vacation. I feel like I have to say that because if you are a business owner, especially if you're a sole prop or a single member LLC, I will say this very slowly because it needs to sink in. You are your own worst boss. You treat yourself the worst when you work for yourself. You do not budget days off. You do not budget vacation. Everyone is the optimist and says, I'm going to work 365 days, 15 hours a day, and I'm always going to be on top of my game. It's just not realistic. So the way you would treat other employees with that same reasonable sense as you prepare for your growth, do that for yourself as well. You know, be your own best boss, because you are at that time. So you want to plan your organizational growth, and you want to assemble or envision your team before the opportunity. That means putting what's in your head on paper. Very important. If you are a one-man show or a one-woman show, if you have maybe only you're the only full-time employee and you have 2 1099 employees, or you have a couple of part-time employees, you want to envision what your business is going to be like 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line. You need to put that vision on paper, because all the jobs that you intend to fill once your business is complete, you need to have a very clear vision of what those are. Otherwise, how are you going to work towards that? How are you going to know how much money you actually need to have a marketing person and an admin assistant and all that other stuff? So even though you can't afford it at this moment, put your vision on paper so that you know what the target is. You're going to know once you sit down and say, well, an admin is going to cost me $50,000 and a marketing person is going to cost me, you know, another $60,000. So once you budget all that out, you'll know, wow, I got to make $350,000 to $400,000 a year to sustain this. But it gives you somewhere to start, gives you somewhere to plan. So that you know what type of opportunities to pursue. Otherwise, you keep getting work and you keep getting stuck in you doing all of the work on your own. You want to project increased costs related to increased growth. So as I mentioned, you get bigger contracts. Those bigger contracts require more staff or more materials. You need to budget those things ahead of time. It is always cheaper to envision or plan things out on paper than for you to try to figure it out once you've landed the contract. I can tell you from personal experience, it is very painful when you receive work and you haven't planned those things out ahead of time and everything seems like it was a surprise. Doesn't have to be if you start to think through the process on paper. You want to see what sustained growth is versus per project growth. So what I mean by that is when you're doing the exercise on paper to figure out who your team is going to be, and you're trying to figure out what your possible projected increases costs are going to be related to growth, you want to know, am I just landing projects that some of them are big and some of them are small? Or how do I go about landing sustained growth projects where at minimum, I'm making this amount of money for a service or a range of money for a service? The reason I bring this up is because a lot of people start their business development plan without identifying what their minimum project contract would be or the approximate size of the contract, and they just grab whatever they get, whatever contracts they get. I'm going to take everything I can get, only to find that it wasn't enough money or it wasn't the right fit for you. So it's money in, money out with not much of a profit margin. So think about what your profit margins are: sustained growth versus per project growth. Don't be dazzled by the numbers. Sometimes the number sounds like a big number, but when you take into account your costs and your staff and the amount of time and possibly how much time that project is taking away from other work that you could be doing and billing for, you got to think about all those things so that you're not accidentally shooting yourself in the foot. Identifying a qualified lender and qualifying for lines of credit, same thing. We live in a capitalist society. Banks are part of the economic structure here. I would again discourage people from bootstrapping businesses if you intend to grow. The earlier that you build a relationship with your lender, the better. For those of you who are not aware, if you applied for a loan at, say, TD Bank and you were declined, that does not mean that no lender will provide that loan for you. Loans are products that banks provide. So all you have to do is figure out which bank matches your profile the best. Some banks provide services to smaller businesses or even sole proprietors, and others are designed for larger businesses. It's not personal. It just means that that bank's formula for lending money and making money requires a minimum revenue amount, a certain industry, whatever. It's just preferential. But as far as banking and lines of credit, SBDC can really guide you in a lot of different directions for that. And I'll save that for a separate presentation as well. And finally, human resources professionals or a service. Don't wait to have problems with employees. Don't wait until you get into an issue with the Department of Labor, or you improperly hired someone, or any of those things that could happen. As you are preparing for growth and you're looking to bring on additional people, there are consultants, if you cannot afford an HR person, that can come in and help you write your manuals, help you hire people. There's a lot of resources that you can tap into in that regard. You don't want to go ahead and just start, again, hiring people and then find out the hard way that you've done something wrong. There's nothing worse than being sidetracked from your business because you're being sued, or you have a disgruntled employee, or some other situation that it's difficult for, it's eating up all your time to deal with. So when you're accessing new markets, which, you know, in this presentation, I'm going to emphasize the certifications, because early on in the presentation, I told everyone that being procurement ready and being ready to get certified go hand in hand. Again, I would look into the state certification, because these certifications open you up to new markets and new services. That is the purpose of a certification. I know you've heard about these things, you know, many, many times, but when you are seeking a certification, you're seeking for funding from entities or organizations that accept that certification. It means there's money behind it. It's that they're not just having you get certified so that you can hang it up for your mom in the hallway or something like that. She's not interested in your certifications. So in accessing new markets, you want to identify the government or the corporate customer that you want to work with. So at the SBDC, we do help with procurement. We help you do some business development planning. And one of the first questions I ask people is, well, who do you want to work with? Anybody is not a good answer. You need to sit down and think about who your ideal client is. So you either want to provide a profile of what your ideal client is to your consultant, or you want to identify the actual company. So if you wanted to work with Blue Cross Blue Shield, for example, they're going to have their own procurement process. If you want to work with New Jersey Transit, they're going to have their own procurement process. They actually have their own certification process. So there's a lot of requirements that come with the opportunity that you're pursuing. All right. So we just want you to not get overwhelmed and focus in on who you want to do business with first, and then build on that versus just collecting a bunch of certifications and then being very overwhelmed about what direction to go in. You want to secure the necessary documents to compete for those opportunities. And we've talked about what those documents are for your business, but in some instances, large quasi-government organizations like New Jersey Transit might ask for additional documents, like we mentioned, profit loss statements or other future projections. They may want those documents to ascertain what your capacity is. And then finally, you want to learn how things are purchased and act on those opportunities. What exactly does that mean? If your firm cannot take on large contracts, for example, you are not ready to do RFPs for $200,000, $300,000. If you are doing business with government in the state of New Jersey, $40,000 is called the bid threshold. And what that means is that anything that is less than $40,000 or up to $40,000 just requires a quote. So for businesses that are small, I want you to understand that the state of New Jersey has 46 departments, 100 cities, 600 boards of education, and so on and so on and so on. Each of those places have a purchasing agent. Each of them have a budget. So you want to be very focused about who you're going to pursue and what things you need to have ready in order to pursue those things. So with that said, we're coming to the close of the presentation. After this presentation, you now know what procurement is. You've heard common procurement terminology. I would welcome people to Google the terms that you have seen, and you'll find just how much stuff starts to come up as far as opportunities. So you can bid, quotes in Essex County, bids in Bergen County, and you'll start to use these terms and really start to narrow down where you can pursue money. You learned what procurement readiness is. You've learned which documents you should have as a business. So if you don't have these documents, you want to act on getting them as soon as possible. And obviously what it takes to grow and what sort of a mindset you have to have for growth. So I want to thank you, Christian, for allowing me to present for the SBDC. I'll give you the floor back and open it up to any questions in whatever format you handle that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Rafael. So yeah, let's jump into some questions. If you have not asked a question yet, please drop it into the Q&A box. If you put into the chat again, it might get lost in there. And we are treating the Q&A with priority first. So first question by Ian. He asks, are there any apps, I guess applications, out there to guide small businesses in the procurement process?
So that is actually, that's a great idea if you're able to pull that off. But I can tell you that in New Jersey, each county is its own fiefdom. This is a local rules state. So in New Jersey, you have 21 counties. Each of them have a purchasing portal, is what they would call it, or a procurement portal. None of them have started to use any applications. It is in fact government. There are a lot of bid match services that you can get, and maybe those have apps. Again, though, I wouldn't recommend that people pay for those services unless they actually have a business development strategy. So, the answer to your question is there's not a centralized app, but if what you're looking for is centralized information, I would connect with any of the state chambers of commerce. You have the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Veterans Chamber of Commerce, the African American Chamber of Commerce, and just the New Jersey State Chamber of Commerce. They tend to spend a lot of time centralizing information, procurement, that sort of stuff. So if you're looking for one place, go to the Chambers of Commerce, but by all means, please develop this app because we're all waiting for it.
Yeah,
That's a great business idea.
That is a great idea. I might run with that if no one else is doing it. Awesome. So next question from Fletcher. He asks, capabilities statement, just with that in a question mark. So I'm going to assume maybe where can you get a capability statement or how is it created? Would you recommend maybe just to start off with a template online and then maybe take it to an SBDC consultant to go over that?
I believe the SBDC does actually have a template, but there really are a lot of templates on Google. Your capability statement should really be no longer than 1 page. I have seen 2-page capability statements, but just keep in mind that this is a document that someone should be able to glance at for about 20-30 seconds and just get an immediate sense of what it is that you do. I would, again, reach out to the SBDC if you need help on putting one together, but there are a number of templates that you can pull for a capability statement.
Awesome. Next question from Sum. He asks, do the products have to be made in the US for NJ state orders?
No, they don't have to be made in the US, but keep in mind that if you do any business in New Jersey, especially if you're looking to do business with the state of New Jersey, you must register your business. You, again, do not have to organize in the state of New Jersey, but if you are a New York business, for example, a Delaware business, you still need that business registration certificate. I believe the term is called a foreign liability company if you're an LLC from outside. I'm not sure what the term is if you're a corporation, but yeah, where the materials come from, it doesn't really matter. You can still do business with the state.
Awesome, thank you. Next question from Ahmed. He asks, the best way to have access to capital is to have a good credit score and potential credit lines. Is it worth taking a loan when you don't have the immediate need for the loan?
My motto has always been to secure loans for future work, or at least that you have a plan on how you're going to take a $20,000 loan, for example, and turn it into $60,000, you know, as far as working capital. That's what banks are going to want to see. So I'm going to say that I would discourage you from taking a loan just to have the loan. The only exception that I would make to that is your economic injury disaster loans, especially $25,000 or less, because it doesn't require collateral for that. I don't think that you're going to see loans with these type of terms for a very, very long time. Some of the initial payments have been pushed out as much as 2 years. The percentages are sometimes 1% to 3%. It is the only time probably in my career that I would say that if you could secure one of those loans, even if you don't need it immediately, you may want to get that loan and kind of sit on it as working capital. But I would still look to take the loan money that you're getting and figure out how to increase that amount overall, because eventually you will have to pay that loan back. So you don't want to just sit on it too long. You want to have some sort of a plan on how you're going to use that to build the business or get new business.
Awesome. Awesome. Next question from Fletcher. He asks, does visibility include Google directories, yellowpages.com, local directories, etc.?
I think that has to do, I mean, Christian, you might know a little more about this, but I think that has to do with the optimization services.
Yeah.
Do a lot of stuff with that. It's not, they don't only do Google, they can look at anything you want, honestly. I'm not sure I've used the Yellow Pages in probably a decade, if not if not more. I'm not even sure if you, not even the online version, but that's just me. I'm gonna assume that a lot of people have really transitioned all the way to Google and don't actually use the yellow pages or the Better Business Bureau for that matter either.
Right.
Kind of gone away.
Yeah, I would probably, from a marketing perspective, I would recommend Google My Business listing. That would be my top choice for anyone to have, and then get on a major social media. So get a Facebook page for your business, get a LinkedIn page for yourself, and a LinkedIn company page. And you could probably start with those. Again, Google My Business, everyone uses Google to search.
Yep.
So for you to come up in the search results is best. All right, so next question here is by Sumita. And she asks, I think this is the same question someone else had. Do products have to be made in the USA, like federal contracts? We kind of already went through that question, right? You said there's no, you could have your products made wherever,
right?
You could still sell to New Jersey. Next question from Carol. I have a capability statement. Who do you send that to in social services for Essex County, for instance?
We can, if you email Christian directly, or you provide your information, I could send you that. But it is usually the purchasing agent. So, and that information for every single county, you would look up the purchasing agent is the appropriate person. That is the ultimate person in charge of purchasing any goods or services with county dollars or city dollars for that matter.
Yeah, what you want to do, Carol, if you haven't registered with an SBDC center, go ahead and do that. Again, the service is free. We guide you. We give you the answers of any question you want. And you'd go to njsbdc.com/request-counseling. So that's where you could find your county. We have an SBDC center in Essex County that could help you. All right, next question. Veronica asks, you mentioned 4 counties catering to those who are minorities. Can you list those?
Absolutely. Ironically enough, in my past life, I was the director of the Hudson County Office of Business Opportunity, and I actually started the first county level set aside in the state of New Jersey in 2016. So Hudson County was the first, followed by Camden County, followed by Mercer County, Essex County, and Bergen County. So Hudson, Bergen, Essex, and Mercer are the 4 counties that have set aside ordinances. Also can all be looked up on Google. Those ordinances have put 10% of all goods and services must be purchased through minority women, veteran, and small businesses in those counties. And they do purchase goods outside of the county, in case that's an additional question. You don't have to be a business in that county to do business under those set-asides. They'll do business with anyone in the state of New Jersey. The only limitation is they really want to limit doing business with, out of state, obviously, because they want more local businesses to get those dollars.
Awesome. We have 3 questions left. Let me just take a look at the time. Do we have 2 minutes, Rafael?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good until you tell me we're done. Okay. I'm in no rush. No, I'm good.
We'll take let's see. We'll take these last 2 questions here. Ivana asks, where can I get information regarding the key business documents I need for my business?
Well, I believe they're going to be sending this presentation out to anyone that registered. So they are listed there. Also, if you go on to the New Jersey website for your minority certification, all the documents listed on that are required for certification, they're also listed there. But again, if you need that hand holding, if you have additional questions about those documents, I still will connect with the SBDC Center, get a counselor or consultant to be able to review those documents with you, because I personally have worked with numerous offices to try to remedy that stuff. So your question is sometimes not straightforward. You want to speak to somebody about your specific situation, be able to show him or her your documents, and then they'll be able to connect you with places like the Business Action Center, whose job it is to connect all businesses with anything that has to do with any business documents. But we can review that, but it has to be on an individual basis. There's no collective list. But the list that you have here, the one that we provided in this presentation, those are your mandatory. At minimum, you should have those. You should have those documents.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're after you complete a survey, once we close out this webinar, you're going to get redirected to the survey page. It's quick. It takes 3 minutes to fill out. Helps us make these presentations better for you. And you also get access to the presentation materials of today. So that's how you could basically get the presentation. All right, so last question here from Hillary. She asks, I manufacture and distribute leak-proof magnetic motor oil drain plugs. I am currently selling in Walmart and AutoZone. Is there a contact at each NJ county to sell for application on government vehicles?
That would be the same response as earlier with the county purchasing agent. I would go definitely those 4 counties that I listed, which were Bergen, Essex, Hudson, and Mercer. They have robust procurement portals that actually list not only the future opportunities, but some of the older ones. So what I would suggest is that you go in there and try to find a bid that you would have replied to. The only word of caution that I would give you is, for things like motor oil, believe it or not, sometimes these counties purchase the cars or lease the cars, and in order to maintain their warranties, they've somehow written into the contract that a specific oil needs to be used, or that the oil needs to come from the same company that's handling the cars that were purchased or leased. So I'm not discouraging you at all, because the counties do purchase a lot of vehicles. They don't lease, believe it or not. But these agreements may be in place. So as you start to do a little research and you reach out to these counties, you may want to ask them directly if they purchase the oil separate from the cars. Sometimes it's a package deal, and then that kind of locks you out. So just find that out before you spend too much effort with the counties.
Awesome. So that's all the time we have. If you have additional questions, again, you can request Rafael. He's part of the capital team. He could help you out with grants and loans. He could help you out with your business in general. Go ahead to njsbdc.com/request-counseling. You're going to get a list of your counties and the center, the SBDC center in your county. So you can go ahead and register. Again, no cost. This is all provided by the SBA and state partners. So yeah, that's all the time we have today. Let me go ahead and show you guys the next presentation that we have. Next week, Thursday, we have Arash. He's going to be speaking about ethics in supply management for small businesses. So everyone here has a small business. You work with suppliers. Arash is really great at helping you manage that relationship with your supplier for your business. So that's next week. Thank you again, Rafael. We are the NJSPDC. We've helped 13,000 plus small businesses grow. Again, the link is at the bottom, njsbdc.com/request-counseling. That's all for me. Thank you, Rafael.
Thanks, Christian. Use those resources, business owners. Use these resources. They are real.
100%. 100%. All right, everyone. We'll see everyone next week. Thanks.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.